Okay, half angles, you also need to memorize these. Note the sign of theta over 2, cosine of theta over 2 is the quadrant that it lies in. So even if you don't know where it is, you can figure out whether or not you use plus or minus. So you'll notice on sine and cosine there's a plus or minus in front. It doesn't mean you use both of them. It means you have to choose. Same thing over here on tangent, but you can use these and not have to worry about it. So before I do anything, I'm going to figure out where cosine or 7 pi over 12 is and figure out whether I need to choose the plus or the minus. So first thing I'm going to do is find where 7 pi over 12 lies to determine plus or minus. So 7 pi over 12 is not on our normal unit circle. However, this is a denominator of 12. So we already know this is pi. So this is 12 pi over 12. Half of 12 pi over 12 is 6 pi over 12, which means 7 pi would fall in the second quadrant. And in the second quadrant, our cosine angle is negative. So there should be a negative on the final answer. So you'll choose the negative. Then we need to figure out what angle on your unit circle, when you divide by 2, gives you 7 pi over 12. So then you need to figure out, find theta, so that your theta over 2 equals your 7 pi over 12. Because you're going to have to come up with some angle that's on your unit circle that when you divide it by 2 gives you 12. Well, you're just doing simple math. So if you're dividing by 2, multiply by 2. And the theta that's going to go in the problem right here is going to be whatever you divide by 2 to get 7 pi over 12. So when I multiply, that's going to give me 7 pi over 6. So I know my theta is going to be 7 pi over 6. I am going to have to put this on the next screen, so you might want to pause it and write this down. Okay, so step 3, once I figure out where 7 pi over 12 is, I'm going to plug it into my equation. So cosine 7 pi over 6 divided by 2. And we already know that it's going to be negative. And if you look at the cosine formula on your worksheet, it's 1 plus cosine theta over 2. Now remember, this is theta. This angle is what's going to go in here. So my cosine of 7 pi over 6 over 2, which is 7 pi over 12, is 1 plus cosine 7 pi over 6 divided by 2. You look cosine of 7 pi over 6 up on your unit circle. And that is negative square root of 3 over 2. It's in the third quadrant and it's negative. And then from here we're just going to do a bit of cleaning up. I'm going to turn 1 into 2 over 2. Oops, negative. On top, that's going to give me 2 minus square root of 3 over 2 over 2. Sorry, I'm just moving it up a little bit. So then that gives me negative 2 minus square root of 3 over 4. If you copy dot flip this, you get over 4. Split it up into 2. And that gives me negative square root of 2 minus square root of 3 over 2. And that is my final answer. Okay, 5, I want to solve 2 sine theta equals sine theta. So I'm going to, first off, I'm going to get rid of the 2. So I'm going to have sine theta over 2 equals 1/2 sine theta. The reason for that is I want to try to get this alone so I can substitute it. So that I'm going to substitute in with my formula, square root of 1 minus cosine theta over 2. And then if I want to solve, I'm going to have to get rid of my radical right here. So I'm going to square both sides to get rid of the radical. So that's going to give me 1 minus cosine theta over 2 equals 1/4 sine squared theta. Now the problem here is we have a cosine and a sine squared. I need these to be the same trig function. So it's easier to change sine squared to 1 minus cosine squared. So I'm going to get 1 minus cosine theta over 2 equals 1 minus cosine squared theta over 4. So if I want to do anything with it, hold on, let me shrink this a little. All right, I'm going to shrink that so I have some more room. Okay. So this needs to be multiplied by 2. So that's going to give me 2 minus 2 cosine, oh wait, theta over 4. Oops. Okay. Once my denominator is the same, I'm just going to put the top together over here. 2 minus 2 cosine theta. We're going to move all of this to the left. Minus 1 plus cosine squared theta. So that's going to give me cosine squared theta minus 2 cosine theta. And then 2 minus 1 are 1. And we're just going to factor. Cosine theta, 1 and 1, negative, negative, equals 0. So both of them are the exact same thing. So cosine of theta equals 1. And cosine of theta is 1 at 0. And since there's no restrictions, I need to put plus 2n pi on the end, not n pi. Hold on. Okay. 6. I want to rewrite sine to the fourth in terms of no power, in terms with no power greater than 1. That means I just want to make sure that I go from a degree of 2, of 3, of 4, of 5, whatever, to something that has no degree on the cosines for this. So I'm going to rewrite sine to the fourth as sine squared. So sine squared x is 1 minus cosine 2x over 2 squared, which means you have to multiply it out. And we're going to have to FOIL it out. So that gives us 1 minus 2 cosine 2x plus cosine squared 2x over 4. Okay. Now you'll notice you still have a squared here. So I'm going to do this on the next screen so I have enough space. So you might want to pause it and write this down. On the last screen, I had 1 minus 2 cosine 2x plus cosine squared 2x over 4. So now I need to handle this again. And again, if you look at the formulas, we're going to kind of write this off to the side. Hold on, let me change colors. Okay, so my cosine squared x equals 1 plus cosine 2x over 2. So kind of similar to what we did earlier. Let me change this. Okay, if there's a 2x here and there's an x here, you're looking at the relationship. If this is x, this is 2x. If this was 2x, this would be 4x. If this is 3x, this would be 6x. This is double. So your cosine squared 2x going to be equal to 1 minus cosine 4x over 2. So again, this is double. This is double. You'll just notice these patterns. So we're going to use this to replace this. Okay, let's go back to the black. So 1 minus 2 cosine 2x plus that 1 plus cosine 4x over 2 over 4. And so since I have fractions within fractions, I want to get rid of this 2. I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 2, this whole thing by 2, which is going to give me 2 minus 4 cosine 2x. These will cancel, plus 1 plus cosine 4x over 8. These will combine, negative 4 cosine 2x plus cosine 4x over 8. Oops, I forgot the 3. Sorry. 2 plus 1 is 3. I don't know why I forgot to write that down. I said it in my head and didn't write it down.